Hey YouTube, what's crackalackin'? It's ClemtheKraken and welcome back to my channel. I thought that since it is September, we could talk about one of the smallest and one of the cutest marine mammals out there, the sea otter. Since it is September, the last week of September is Sea Otter Awareness Week, where various places, including the aquarium that I used to work at, um, do educational activities to draw awareness to the sea otter and their plight. Um, because the sea otters are on the endangered species list, and they are also part of the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which protects all marine animals. But the sea otters, obviously being endangered, do need a little extra help. So I thought I'd just go over some of the things that I know about sea otters from when I was working at the aquarium and share some cool facts, some information, and just bring a more, I don't want to say more educated because that makes me sound more important than I am, but to bring a picture of the sea otters that maybe people haven't seen before outside of, oh my god, they're so cute. And maybe help you guys to be more aware of the sea otters and what they're struggling with being on the Endangered Species Act. So I have my marine information binder here. So the sea otters are part of the weasel family. They are called mustelids, I think. I can't pronounce things, so forgive me if that's wrong. They are the, like I said at the beginning, they are the smallest marine mammal, and they survive on a diet of like anything. They'll eat clams, they'll eat squids, they'll eat sea urchins, they'll eat shrimp and octopus, pretty much anything that's small enough that they can get their hands on, and anything that will give them enough nutrition to get through their life. So historically, the sea otters live in the Pacific Rim area, which, if you don't know where that is, it's kind of like Alaska, Canada, Washington State of the United States, and then the other side is like Russia, Japan, China. It's a big ring of volcanoes, which is called, I think, like the Fire Rim or something like that. But that's the North Pacific Rim, and that's where they generally have been found, sea otters. They were hunted nearly to extinction in Washington State in the 90s because their fur was really, really valuable. It's very, very thick. It's the thickest fur of any mammal on the planet. And, when something is that good, that soft, if you ever felt it, you know how soft it is. People just want to get as much as they can. It becomes a status symbol. So a lot of people were hunting them for their fur, stripping them, and selling that fur in places where it would be more expensive. So anybody who was rich bought it. People would sell it in China where it would be like $5,000 a piece. The Washington State population was hunted nearly to extinction. The Alaskan population was brought back down to Washington to reintroduce them because they are an important part of the food chain. They are actually a top predator, so without sea otters, we have issues like too many urchins, and then too many urchins leads to destruction of kelp forests because the urchins eat the kelp and nothing's eating the urchins. So they are an important part of the food chain, the environment, how the sea otters affect everything. So it was important to reintroduce them into the Washington State marine environment. They really live on the outer coast, so anywhere closer to land versus in open water. So they are more likely to be found, someplace where people live rather than in the middle of the ocean where, nothing's really there. Like I said, their fur is very important to them. They spend about 1/3 of their day grooming it, licking, cleaning, rubbing. If you've ever gone to a zoo and aquarium and seen a sea otter, it's most likely you saw them grooming. They're very they have to keep their fur clean because it's basically their only way of keeping warm. They do live they live closer to the Arctic than they do to the equator. So obviously the water is very cold. I'd say the water up here averages like in the 40s and 30s, which is close to freezing Fahrenheit. And they like need to keep their fur clean because they don't have any blubber or anything to actually provide them with warmth. So it's literally the only thing between them and the freezing water is their layer of fur. They have the thickest fur of any mammal on the planet, so if you hold your fingers like this is about 500,000 hairs. If their fur becomes dirty, or if they lose that waterproofing that it gives them, they can die of hypothermia. Cold water, something that happens. And actually slowing down or stopping grooming is a sign of poor health. If an otter stops grooming itself, stops cleaning itself, it gives, especially in a zoo or aquarium environment where they can get medical attention, it gives the people who are looking out for them a sign that something's wrong, that they need to be taken in the back to be looked at, to make sure that they are healthy, or if they're not healthy, that it's something that we can aid them in, give them medicine or some sort of other medical attention. Sea otters have a very fast metabolism. They eat about 25% of their body weight a day, which is a lot. So if you take your body weight and divide it into fourths, there would be that much food, in my case in pounds, per day. That's a lot of food. And part of that is using tools to help them open their food, like things like rocks. I think everybody knows that fact that sea otters keep their favorite rocks with them, and use those to open clams, to open sea urchins. It's very, it's an indicator of how intelligent they are, because one of the measures, especially in the animal kingdom, is if something uses a tool, it has a higher intelligence than something that doesn't use a tool. So the fact that sea otters can use those tools to get the food that they want, to open the clams and the urchins, is very cool. It's a very interesting sign of their intelligence. As far as reproduction goes, they are monogamous, which means they take one mate, and they keep that mate until they die, in the case of sea otters. They don't really have like a season in which they reproduce. They kind of just reproduce when they feel like it. The gestation is about 7 to 8 months, which means that's how long they carry the baby for. They live to be in the teens in the wild, so somewhere between like 12 and 15, in environments where they are taken care of by humans, where they have access to food all the time, have medical attention, things like that. They can live up to 15 to 20 years, and the oldest that we've seen is 28, which is like super old for a sea otter. Their biggest threat in like the wild, or just in general, is people, as many ways, as in many like animal families, the biggest threat is people to their conservation. They have, like I said, they're on the endangered species list. They're protected under the Marine Mammal Act, but that only does so much, because we can put them on the list, but if we're still not doing anything to change the way that we treat our marine environment, then it doesn't really help to have them on a list that says, humans can't hunt them. Well, maybe humans aren't hunting them for fur anymore, but there are other things that we're doing that definitely do not help. Their other predators include eagles, bears, and orcas. Those are definitely for more of, the young ones, when, the baby has to be by itself for a little bit so that the mom or dad can go get food, and then they don't have that protection. The biggest threat from humans is definitely oil spills because, like I said earlier, since their fur is so important to keeping them healthy, getting things in their fur, things like oil, which doesn't just, come out with water or anything, is, bad for their health. If they can't get rid of the oil, if they can't clean it off, they get hypothermia and then they can die. And then there's also diseases, just marine diseases in general, diseases that we can't control. Things that they can't get medical attention for that will end up killing the sea otter. Those are things that we can't really prevent, but it wouldn't hurt to definitely make our marine environment a little bit healthier. Sea otters are only found in saltwater because they are a marine animal. The definition of marine is kind of loose because anything that technically lives off of a marine environment, so gets like their food from a marine environment, can technically be considered a marine mammal or a marine bird. But the sea otters specifically, they live in saltwater, so they live in ocean environments. They weigh about 40 to 100 pounds, which is pretty big. They spend most of their time in water. I think we've all heard the fun fact that when otters are sleeping, they hold hands and form what's called a raft, which is a group of sea otters, so as to not float away from the group. And they spend most of their time swimming on their backs, floating around, grooming, obviously, and being very, very cute. So those are just some of the facts about sea otters that I learned and remembered from working at the aquarium. So the point of this video, obviously, is that it is Sea Otter Awareness Week at the end of September, and we want to make sure that something that adorable and that important to the marine environment is kept safe and kept healthy for the future of our planet. So if you want to support it, definitely going green helps. Obviously, I'm sure it's all things that have been told to you before, turning off lights when you leave the room, recycling, all of that going green stuff. But it also does help to, make sure when you're voting and things like that, you're being conscious of what bills and things would affect the animals or would affect the environment and the way we treat it. So that's my little stand on a soapbox and preach moment for the week. Keep in mind, sea otters need our help. They're very cute. They're very adorable. Let's not let them die. Thanks for listening. If you guys want to see another animal-themed video from me, definitely give me ideas down in the comments. I've done octopus, I've done orcas, and now I've done sea otters. Definitely looking to do more because this is one of my biggest passions. I love the ocean, and I love informing people about the ocean and the animals that live in it. So if you have any specific animal that you'd really like to know more about, I can definitely do some research and do a little talk on it. In the meanwhile, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!